Peace. Assalamu alaikum. This is your brother Tavon Swain, aka the Orthodox Moor, and this is Sunnah of Allah, where we cover things from a Quranist point of view. And this video was inspired by a conversation I heard earlier on the G Block channel. Shout out to Valley Vision G Block. There was a conversation on there between James SC, James Speaker's Corner, and Sister ZOUBIDA Al-Arabiya, a Sunni Muslim, and I believe James is an atheist. I'm pretty sure he's an atheist. And so they were discussing the concept of the age of Aisha and the hadith and the Quran basis for the concept of 6 and 9, being the age of Aisha and the age of her marriage to the Prophet. And so this is just a quick response to that, because James brought out Surah 65, I believe, ayat 4, and said that this was a Quranic base for being able to marry prepubescent girls. And so that's a claim I hear quite often. And to be quite honest, I can understand the claim given people's ignorance of the Quran. But hopefully this will be clear and concise and clear of any confusion about the concept of prepubescent girls being of a marriageable age in the Quran, or it being allowed to marry, or you being allowed to marry underage girls in the Quran. Something I would like to set out at the outset is this is a very controversial topic in terms of like the age of Aisha, etc., in all of Islam. And so for the critics of Islam, I would ask that you treat this topic with respect and with the intellectual honesty it deserves. So typically when people specify that Aisha was 6 and 9, they do so based upon Sunni hadiths. They go to Bukhari or whatnot. They go to Sahih Muslim, etc., whatnot. But for the most part, they stick to a Sunni tradition or whatnot. As a Quranist, I don't have a dog in the fight of Sunni versus Shia, whatnot. However, being intellectually honest about the situation, if I was going to use the hadith tradition to critique Islam, I would have to be fair to the different schools of thought and not only use the Sunni hadith, but also use the Shia hadith. And when you understand the concepts, the different schools of thought come to different ages of Aisha. So the Shias don't believe she was 6 and 9. They believe she was closer to like 16, 19, something of that nature. And some even go like higher than that, like 20, 21, something like that. And even with the Sunni hadith that are cited for the age of Aisha, there's a scholastic discrepancy with the concept, because the concept of the Sunnah, or the way of the Prophet or his hadith, etc., in the way that the Sunni Muslims take it, there's an issue here, because all the hadith that stipulate that she was 6 and 9, they go back to Aisha herself. They don't go back to the Prophet. They're not the words of the Prophet. Are they sahih? Yes. Is the chain of narration good? Yeah. But this is not, again, so most of my Muslim brothers are going to tell me I should take the hadith, right, based upon a Quran verse talking about obey Allah and obey the messenger, and also another Quran verse talking about whatever the messenger gives you, take it. Now, in this situation, it's not the messenger giving me something, it's Aisha giving me something. So for the critics of Islam, I want you to understand that trying to use just solely using the hadith of Aisha and tafsir of Sunni Muslims based upon that hadith and their perspectives on the Quran is not necessarily fair to the tradition of Islam. Particularly because the Shias have a whole different tradition based upon this and a whole different set of hadith. And then you have people like me who are Quranists and whatnot, who stipulate from the words of the Quran that the Quran is the greatest hadith, is the best hadith. So I would ask humbly that if you're going to critique Islam, do so from the balanced perspective of taking all the hadith, the Sunni and the Shia, whichever ones that can be considered authentic within their traditions and whatnot, and then compare them to the greatest hadith, to the Quran itself, and see what it says. And with that, I'm just going to jump right into what I have. And hopefully I make this too long, God willing. But this is the verse in question, Surah 65, ayat 4. And I'm using the Sahih International Version here just for grins and giggles. And those who no longer expect menstruation among your women, if you doubt, and this has to do with divorce, by the way. If you doubt, then their period is 3 months. And also for those who have not menstruated and those who are pregnant, their term is until they give birth. And whoever fears Allah, he will make for him of his matter ease. And so this phrase here, and for those who have not menstruated, is typically the phrase that's taken and focused on here. And so typically people are using that to mean like a prepubescent stage. So the first stage mentioned are those who no longer expect menstruation, like menopausal. And then here they talk about those who have not menstruated. So again, like some assume that means prepubescent. And then the next stage is and for those who are pregnant. So there's definitely 3 groups of women being identified. And I want to be clear, my stance is that it says women there. Someone's trying to say that it says like a prepubescent child kind of a situation. We'll find that out via the Arabic of the Quran and the reiteration therein. Another verse that was cited was Surah 33, ayah 49, which says, "O you who have believed, when you marry believing women," again, women, "and then divorce them before you have touched them, then there is not for you any waiting period to count concerning them. So provide for them and give them a gracious release." Now, I'm not sure as to why this verse was cited, because this is pretty clear cut. Basically, in Islam and in the Quran, there's a waiting period with that coincides with divorce, and it has to do, and I'll show very clearly, it has to do with pregnancy, and as to why there's a waiting period, and it stipulates here that there's no waiting period if you have not touched them, like i.e., like let's say like you marry a woman, but like or you betrothed the woman, etc., whatnot, but you decide to get divorced or not go through with the marriage before the meeting at the altar or something like that, or before you've actually physically just consummated the wedding or consummated the marriage. That seems pretty self-explanatory to me, and that'll get clear as I go forward. But again, to be clear, the issue is this here, Surah 65, ayat 4. This is what I'm going to be mainly focusing on, which is this concept of those who have not menstruated, and to clarify what that means. And can that mean a prepubescent underage girl in any way, shape, or form? Anything other than a mature woman? Can it be anything other than that? So with that, I'm going to go forward and just clarify something again. In Surah 39, ayah 23, stipulates that Allah has sent down the best statement, the best hadith, the greatest hadith, a consistent book wherein is reiteration. So one of the main methods that I use as a Quranist is the concept of reiteration within the Quran, taking out all the verses that have to do with the particular topic and seeing what the reiteration of those verses stipulates. And so when I do that, I find much clarity in this situation. And so let's see what the reiteration stipulates. First of all, let's get some context. Again, this is having to do with marriage and divorce. This whole surah period is about divorce. This whole surah is about divorce. But just to be clear, just to give some context, Surah 65 is talking about this in the first verse. O Prophet, when you divorce women, divorce them for the commencement of their waiting period, and keep count of the waiting period, and fear Allah, your Lord. Do not turn them out of their husbands' houses, nor should they themselves leave during that period unless they are committing a clear immorality. And those are the limits set by Allah. And whoever transgresses the limits of Allah has certainly wronged himself. You know not, perhaps Allah will bring about after. Perhaps Allah will bring about after that a different matter. And so, to be clear, it's talking about when you divorce women. Women. I want you to keep that in mind. Women. Al-Nisa. Women. When you divorce women. This is the word by word from QuranCorpus.com. James, feel free to double check this. I'm leaving it up here so you can see what I'm looking at. This is the word by word in the order in which it comes up in the verse, etc. whatnot. So you see, when you divorce the women, then divorce them for their waiting period. And please forgive me, family. This might sound a little funny, but I'm reading this directly from the word by word, so you can understand what it's saying in context. Okay. So it might sound just a little funny in English, but it'll make sense. When you divorce the women, then divorce them for their waiting period and keep count of the waiting period. So there's a waiting period dealing with divorce. Okay. So now drop down to 65 ayat 4, and we have a little bit more understanding and whatnot. And those who no longer expect menstruation among your women, if you doubt, then their period is 3 months. So this is that waiting period in divorce, right? And also those who have not menstruated, and for those who are pregnant, their term is until they give birth. So let's be clear about who we're talking about. Again, it is definitely 3 groups of women being specified. So far, there is no language to specify that is not women, that is anything other than women, i.e. mature, grown women. And so it stipulates again in the direct Arabic, and those who have despaired of the menstruation among your women. That's group number 1. Menopausal women, and those who have despaired of the menstruation among your women. Those who have given hope of the menstruation among your women. Menopausal women. It says that their waiting period is 3 months. And directly what it says in the Arabic, and those who not they menstruated. So those who have not menstruated. And those who are pregnant, that's the 3rd group, their term until they deliver their burdens. Now that's real interesting. And we're going to clear this up with the reiteration of the Quran. Surah 2, ayah 28 stipulates this. Divorced women remain in waiting for 3 periods, and it is not lawful for them to conceal what Allah has created in their wombs if they believe in Allah in the last day. So this clarifies something. This clarifies something about the previous verse. So when it says this concept of and those who have not menstruated, it's not talking about women who have not reached puberty yet. And I can say that for certain because there's a word for this in Arabic, and it could be used here, and it's not used here. And I'll show that later. But even more specifically, watch this. It says, and it is not lawful for them to conceal what Allah has created in their wombs if they believe in Allah on the last day. So there's a concealed pregnancy. There are those who are pregnant, and there are those who could potentially have a concealed pregnancy. And so you already know what it is. When a woman's pregnant, she doesn't menstruate. And so the waiting period of 3 months is to see if she will menstruate, to see if she actually is pregnant. Because if she's pregnant, she has to make it known. She is not allowed to conceal it. Because if she conceals it, that is not lawful. And it is not lawful for them to conceal what Allah has created in their wombs if they believe in Allah in the last day. That is Surah 2, Ayat 228. And again, this is the word by word directly in the Arabic from QuranCorpus.com. And the women who are divorced shall wait concerning themselves for 3 monthly periods. And it is not lawful for them that they conceal what has been created by Allah in their wombs. So in the 3 distinct groups of women that we see in Surah 65, it's women who are menopausal, women who may have a concealed pregnancy, and then women who are definitely pregnant. The 3-month waiting period is to make sure that the woman is to verify if the woman is pregnant or not. Now, again, just to be clear, the Quran, the greatest hadith, the best hadith, reiterates within itself that there are 3 groups of divorcing women. Again, women. I can't stress this enough right now. Women, menopausal, pregnant, and potentially pregnant women. Again, these are the 3 groups of divorcing women: menopausal, pregnant, and potentially pregnant. The waiting period for them is 3 months. It's unlawful to conceal a woman's pregnancy. It's unlawful to conceal a woman's pregnancy. This is how we know with the reiteration that it's talking about a potential pregnancy, because there's women that are definitely pregnant in that verse, and women who are menopausal, and then women who have not yet menstruated. They potentially have a concealed pregnancy going forward. How do I know that it's not talking about prepubescent girls? Well, the Quran specifies, stages of life from inception to old age. One more time. The Quran specifies stages of life from inception to old age. The Quran specifies the age of marriage being the stage of maturity, and also the same stage in the same age that an orphan receives their property, the age of maturity. That's the age of marriage in the Quran. So a mature woman. All we've seen is women mentioned so far. We've seen nothing other than women. Now, people will still want to talk about this verse in Surah 65, talking about those who have not yet menstruated. Again, these are women who have potentially a concealed pregnancy that they may or may not know about. So again, the Quran specifies that puberty is the last stage of childhood. I'm going to show that. And there's a term for puberty. And this term childhood, please pay attention, because either we're dealing with children or we're dealing with mature women. Watch this. The Quran specifies that puberty is a separate stage before maturity. You know what? I'm gonna deal with that in a whole different way. Watch. So just to be clear, these are the stages of ages in the Quran. Surah 22, Ayat 5. O people, if you should be in doubt about the resurrection, then consider that indeed we created you from dust, then from a sperm drop, then from a clinging clot, and then from a lump of flesh, formed and unformed, that we may show you, and we settle in the wombs whom we will for a specified term. Then watch this. We bring you out as a child, and then that's stage 1. We develop you that you may reach your time of maturity, stage 2. And among you is he who is taken in early death, and among you is he who is returned to the most decrepit old age, so that he knows, stage 3. After once having knowledge, nothing, and you see the earth barren, but when we send down upon it rain, it quivers and swells and grows something of every beautiful kind. So again, this is the word by word. A child, tiflan. Maturity, old age. I want you to pay attention to this, right? This child concept, okay? Going forward, for more reiteration, Surah 40, ayat 67. It is he who created you from dust, then from a sperm drop, then from a clinging clot. And again, one more time, family, watch this. Then he brings you out as a child, stage 1. Then he develops you that you reach your time of maturity, stage 2. Then further, that you become elders, stage 3. And among you is he who is taken in death before that, so that you reach a specified term, and perhaps you will use reason. Again, same terms, word by word in the Arabic: child, maturity, old age. But please pay attention to this concept of child. It is not the same thing as being in the age of maturity. And so, again, the reiteration of the Quran and the greatest hadith specifies he brings you out as a child. Then you reach maturity. Then you become elders. Now, I could do a whole breakdown. I could spend a whole show just breaking this down, because there's different stages to being a child. There's a full stage to maturity that ends at being 40. And then there's the whole elders concept. And to be clear, I'll do a whole nother video based upon what the Quran stipulates on how you derive the specific age of maturity in the age of marriage. But here I'm just going to clear up the fact that it's not a prepubescent child in any way, shape, or form. Any way, shape, or form. That it is a fully mature woman, fully grown woman. Women as opposed to prepubescent child. Again, tiflan and derivatives thereof. This is how you say child. Nisa, that's woman. Nisa, that's woman, and derivatives thereof. You'll see el nisa, the women, quite a bit in this. So we're talking about nisa versus tiflan and derivatives thereof. Surah 23 or 24, ayat 31. And tell the believing women to reduce, and this has to do with this particular ayat has to do with modesty. It's a modesty concept. So keep that in mind. And tell the believing women to reduce some of their vision and guard their private parts, and not expose their adornment except that which necessarily appears thereof, and to wrap a portion of their head covers over their chests, and not to expose their adornment except to their husbands, their fathers, their husbands' fathers, their sons, their husbands' sons, their brothers' sons, their sisters' sons, their women that which their right hand possesses, which is a loaded term that I'll deal with that on a whole nother video. It doesn't mean that. But I'm just reading this with Sahih International whatnot. Or that male attendants having no physical desire, or children who are not yet aware of the private aspects of women. Here you see a direct specificity, right? You see children and them not being aware of the private aspects of women. They are not the same here. The children are not the women. The children are not the women. And again, women, the direct Arabic, watch what the children who are not aware of private aspects of the women. Al-Tafli il-Nasai, the children and the women. And what are the private aspects of the women? Watch the reiteration, family. Surah 24, ayat 58. O you who have believed, let those whom your right hand possess. And again, that's a loaded term. I will do a whole nother video on that later, but it does not mean that. And those who have not yet reached puberty among you, ask permission of you before entering at 3 times. One more time. And those who have not yet reached puberty among you. In direct Arabic, in the direct word by word from the QuranCorpus.com. And those who have not reached puberty among you. This is the word for puberty, family. The puberty. Il-hulama, right? Who are they? Who are they who have not reached puberty among you? Watch, this is the next verse. And when the children among you reach puberty, let them ask permission at all times as though before them have done. In direct Arabic, and when reach the children, al-falu, right? The children among you, the puberty. So there's a direct phrase that can be used in Surah 65, ayat 4, to talk about children who have not yet reached puberty. This is the direct phraseology in Arabic. And when reach the children among you, the puberty. There's a direct phraseology that deals with that. But it was not used there. It was not used there. It did not differentiate anywhere children and women. Fully mature women. Just keep that in mind, family. This is talking about puberty. There's a term for puberty there. If you wanted to talk about pubescence, it could have mentioned pubescence. It's talking about menopause. Why not talk about pubescence? Why not separate that? It could have said the women who are menopausal, the children who have not yet reached puberty, and then the pregnant women. It didn't say that, did it? It said the women who are menopausal, kept on trucking, and those who have not yet menstruated, and those who are pregnant, and then goes on to reiterate those who may have a concealed pregnancy. It's unlawful to do so. So again, the reiteration in the Quran and greatest hadith stipulates this, that there are three groups of women. Those among you who no longer menstruate, those among you with a concealed pregnancy, and those among you who are carrying / pregnant. And they're all women. There's no specification of them not being women anywhere. And again, the simple question is this: why isn't the clear phrase, those who have not reached puberty among you, used in Surah 65, ayat 4? Now, again, this is the greatest hadith. You can you can talk about all the tafsir and all the other sahih hadith you want to, but none of them equate to the greatest hadith. All Shias and all Sunnis got to submit to this concept right here. So anybody who wants to critique the Quran, the greatest hadith, I got a question for you. Does it not stipulate the concept of a concealed pregnancy? Yes or no? Is there not clear phraseology about those who have not reached puberty among you? Yes or no? In the reiteration of the Quran, are those who have not reached puberty in the divorcing situation, or not puberty, excuse me, those who have not menstruated in the divorcing situation, are they women or are they children? Yes or no? In the reiteration of the Quran. So there's a very clear phrase that could have been used that was not used in Surah 65, ayat 4. Why is that? Why is that? This phrase clearly speaks about non-mature, prepubescent children. Now, again, the Quran stipulates you have to be mature in order to be of marriageable age. So going further, and this is to close it out, for those that would criticize Islam, if you were going to cite hadith, please be consistent. Please be consistent. You can't just, and what do I mean by that? You can't force, let's say I'm a Shia. You can't force me to hold to a Sunni tradition. Let's say I'm a Sunni. You can't force me to hold to a Shia tradition. Let's say I'm a Quranist. You can't force me to hold to either of those traditions. So if you're going to critique Islam, be consistent about it. Cite all of the authentic Sunni hadiths. right? And then cite all of the authentic Shia hadiths that have to do with the same concept. And then when you're done comparing the two, take any discrepancies you have between the two back to the Quran, because the Quran stipulates, as I read for you, it is the greatest hadith. Compare and contrast them to the greatest hadith. One more time, cite all of the authentic Sunni hadiths on the topic you're dealing with. Then cite all of the authentic Shia hadiths on the topics you're dealing with. Then compare them and contrast them to the greatest hadith, the Quran itself, which I just showed you has much reiteration therein. And that's one of the methods from the Quran itself, is to use the reiteration from the Quran to explain itself. So, for instance, Aisha is not even mentioned in the Quran. Not even mentioned. And again, this is a very, 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 very sticky subject when it comes to Islam, right? But if you're going to be intellectually honest about it, you got to check this out. The age of Aisha is disputed by Muslims. The Sunni hadith say she was from 6 to 9. And again, those don't even go back to the Prophet. They just go back to Aisha. So you really got to take a look at those, yeah? The Shia hadith say she was from 17 to 19. And again, even older than that in some traditions, right? The greatest hadith says mature women are of marriageable age. Mature women. The Quran, the greatest hadith, does not say children who have not yet reached puberty. So for the critics of Islam, I would just let that sink in right quick. The greatest hadith, the one that neither Sunni nor Shia argue over, stipulates that only mature women are of marriageable age. And in divorcing them, it does not say children who have not yet reached puberty. There is no word for children in that verse, specifying them to be part of the three groups. It is women in all three, and divorcing women in all three, as clarified by the Arabic of the Quran. Again, the three groups being menopausal women, women who potentially have a concealed pregnancy, and women who are known to be pregnant. But with that, family, I'm going to call it good right there. Hopefully this was not too long. I appreciate you for your time. I appreciate your comments. Please like and subscribe. If you got anything to say, positive, negative, I'll take all of it. You know what I'm saying? I like all the criticism. And with that, I say peace and love.